Okay, I'm Marissa,
And I'm Nadine.
and we're going to talk about Western mushroom cultivation. Okay, so. Okay, so it was the first big cultivator of mushrooms was France. Um, Specifically, Louis XIV. He's credited with first mushroom cultivation. Did a lot of it. And it was said that mushrooms are cultivated in caves around Paris. So, yep. Next, it went to England, and a lot of florists would cultivate mushrooms because they could easily put the mushroom trays underneath their benches where they'd grow flowers. So then cultivation finally came to America, and Americans couldn't produce their own mushroom spawn, which was a problem. And they had to import the spawn from England, but sometimes it would go bad, and it was a big problem until Lewis F. Lambert created his pure culture spawn, and then America was able to cultivate their own mushrooms without English spawn. It's a very exciting time.
Alright, industrial cultivation. There are 6 steps to mushroom farming, and they are first phase 1, which is compost, and then phase 2 is finishing the compost, and then it goes to spawning, casing, pinning, and cropping. Phase 1 starts out by mixing and wetting the ingredients. Water is sprayed onto manure or some type of synthetic compost, and bulk ingredients are then spread over top of the compost and put into a turner. This helps growth of microorganisms, which then commences aerobic fermentation. Heat, ammonium, and carbon dioxide are released as byproducts in this process. Turning and watering is done in 2-day intervals, and water addition is critical. Too much will exclude oxygen, and too little can limit the growth of bacteria and fungi. Phase 1 lasts about 7 to 14 days, and then it goes to finishing the compost. This is just pictures of fermentation and all the stuff coming out. So then we move on to phase 2.
Okay, so it's composting, or finishing the compost. So it starts with pasteurization, which kills insects, nematodes, and other pests, and it removes ammonia. And then it takes place in wooden trays that are stacked 8 to 6 high, and it normally takes place in an environmentally controlled room. A bed or a shelf in the room is used for all of the stuff, and there's another way to do it, and it's in bulk, and you place it in a cement block bin in a special room with a perforated floor so that all the bad stuff falls down. It's very exciting, and it takes 10 to 14 days to complete. It's a long process. So yeah, these are just pictures of trays and different ways to do it, and that creepy guy.
Alright, then we move on to spawning. This begins by sterilizing a mixture of rye grain and water and chalk. Mycelium is added to the mixture and is shaken a couple times a day for about 14 days until the grain is colonized by mycelium. The final mixture is called spawn, and spawn can be refrigerated for a few months so it can be made in advance for convenience. It's distributed on the compost and then thoroughly mixed in compost, and mycelium strains eventually fuse together and spawn appears white to blue-ish color throughout the compost, and this process takes about 14 to 21 days. Until the next step happens, and those are just a bunch of mycelium. So next step is casing.
Okay, so a top dressing is applied to the spawn-filled compost, and it's either made of clay loam field soil, peat moss with brown limestone, or reclaimed compost. And it acts as a water reservoir and a place where rhizomorphs form, and rhizomorphs are super important to the formation of mushrooms. And the temperature is kept around 75 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 days, and it has really high humidity. And the temperature of the compost is lowered 2 degrees until mushroom pins have formed.
And then our next step is pinning. This begins after rhizomorphs form, like she said. Once the initial structure quadruples in size, it's called a pin, and these expand and grow into a button stage and continue to grow until they are mushrooms, and that's the rhizomorphs, and then these are the pins. Growing is initiated by lowering carbon dioxide levels in the room. As pins continue to grow, they push through the casing. This is one of the most significant steps in cultivation. So there's some cool mushrooms popping out. The next step is cropping. Flush, spring, and bloom, are names given to the repeating cycle of harvest periods, and the entire harvest normally lasts 35 to 42 days, although some people have, depends on the type of mushroom, and some of them are 60, and there's even ones that are like 150, which is a long time. But the rooms are kept cool at like 57 to 62 degrees, and the mushrooms are watered 2 to 3 times a week to help them keep producing more mushrooms, and it makes sure that they aren't too dry or too wet, because then you have mushrooms that no one wants to eat. And ventilation and humidity are kept at like consistent temperatures, again, to help with mushrooms. And after they harvest all of the mushrooms, they then pasteurize the room with steam, and it takes approximately 15 weeks to complete like the entire mushroom cycle. It's a long time for those mushrooms, but he's so happy with, look at that, prime mushrooms. All right. Next, we're going to talk about psilocybin mushrooms and how these are cultivated. Most psilocybin mushrooms are grown at home using techniques passed down from grower to grower. The first step in growing magic mushrooms is to make a substrate consisting of brown rice flour and water, which will feed and supply to the mushrooms. These are mixed and put into a jar, like right here, or like that.
You can also cultivate like other mushrooms like this. It's not strictly magic mushrooms. We're not like trying to make you guys use magic mushrooms. This is just a common way of home cultivation.
All right, these jars then sterilized into a pressure cooker or boiling water, and that's to kill anything that would endanger mushrooms. After this is sterilized and cooled, mushroom spores are added to the substrate. The spores germinate and colonize, and they result in cakes like this picture, and then they are removed from the jar and fully colonized and placed into a terrarium with pretty high temperatures until the mushrooms begin to grow on these cakes, like right there. After mushrooms form, they grow best at about 90 degrees, and they like to be really moist and a lot of humidity, and in a place that gets light. And when they're mature, they are harvested and dried and then sold. So that's about it.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed cultivation of mushrooms, because we sure did.
So exciting.